Do you feel like your business is running your life instead of the other way around? I'm Roy Castleman. I built multiple seven-figure companies, worked across continents, and coached high-performing entrepreneurs. But I've also been completely burnt out. At one point, I was barely seeing my daughter, drowning in stress, and one step away from walking away from it all. That's when I made a decision to build a business and a life that works for me. The journey became Elevate 360, a system to help business owners reclaim their time, find their energy again, and get back in control, without sacrificing growth. And this podcast, Power Movers, is where I share real stories behind that shift. Each week you'll hear from entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders who've walked through the fire and come out the other side with clarity, courage, and a system that works. If you're ready to build a business that gives you more life instead of taking it away, you're in the right place. Hey guys, I'm here with Brent Phillips, fellow South African, fellow entrepreneur, done some amazing things, and we'll dig into that a bit more. He runs an amazing place called the Milk and Honey Ranch in Texas.
Yeah, not ranch, ranch.
Ranch, for sure. Yeah, right. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
If you had bet me $1 million that this is where my life would end up, I would have lost that bet. I never, ever imagined, some people are like, was this always your dream? It was never my dream. I love technology. I've got a master's in software engineering, and I was very happy to do that for the rest of my life. Not outdoorsy. I didn't go camping, fishing. I was very happy indoors. As Jim Gaffigan said, since they invented the house, why would you want to camp? Anyway, what led to this? I built a few companies. The last one was with my brother. It was a big tech med company. And a few events happened. COVID happened, which changed a lot of people. We'll never be the same after COVID. But it brought me home from the office. Like you, I was working very long days and happy doing it. But when I came home, I was like, I quite like this woman that I married. And I remember I married her on purpose because I wanted to spend time with her, but I'm gone most of the time. And my kids, I was like, my kids are growing up. I'm barely seeing them. So that was a big wake-up call that I was like, I have to change my lifestyle. Then we had a big freeze in Texas that literally shut down the whole state. Texas was not prepared for that kind of weather, like Colorado. But we had no food, we had no water, we had no heat. It was crazy. I expect that stuff in South Africa for everything to stop working, not in America.
How long was it for?
It was like 4 or 5 days.
Wow.
And so we were fortunate to have a swimming pool so we could flush the toilets. We were getting water out of the swimming pool and flushing the toilets. We were fortunate to have a gas stove so we could boil the water from the swimming pool. But our pipes didn't work. Everything was frozen. And anyway, it was very scary in that I could not be the provider for my family.
Yeah.
Up until then, my technology had insulated me. I loved using Uber Eats and every smart switch. I had it all the automations, Alexa, home, whatever it might be. And none of that mattered when the power went out. I eventually got to Home Depot to try fix some of the things in the house. And I got into Home Depot and I was like, who am I kidding? I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what to look for. I don't know what tools, what anything. And I really need to learn more about life than just technology. And I need to take my family with me because I've just perpetuated a pure technology lifestyle to them. I feel like I've actually disadvantaged them by doing that. So that was the shakeup that happened when we started talking about, hey, we need to buy some land and learn the whole other side of life that we know nothing about.
That's such a honor wake up, right? That understanding that you never get that time back with your family, right?
Yeah.
We do this as entrepreneurs. And I had a guest the other day who really hit the point. He's like, you go through life and you think you're doing this for your family, but they never asked you for it, right?
We definitely buy into I'm providing a certain lifestyle. And that's like a check mark in a society that we live in. If you can provide your wife a BMW, like you're doing really well as a husband, but if you provided her a BMW, you never see her, it's better you provided her, some smart car and you get to drive together to places. One of the things when we would travel, I would see old people traveling and I was like, I don't want to wait till I'm old to do these things. I would rather take cheaper trips, like to the Holiday Inn now, than wait for some Europe trip to travel with my family. And then I've missed the boat.
I had an experience. I was 19 on Fields Hill in Durban, and I got run over by a drunken driver. I was hitching on the motorway. They call it my white line moment. I lay on the road. His bumper hit me. I went into the windscreen. My arm wrapped around the side and it flipped me into the middle of the road. And I was laying there. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm dead now. The cars are zipping past my head. Luckily,
Yeah,
two amazing Samaritans stopped. So they saw it and they pulled the car up behind me and they pulled me onto the
sure.
onto the white line so that I wouldn't get hit. And the thing that I regretted wasn't the things I'd done. It was the things I haven't done. I want to go skydiving and I want to go and travel more. And that was such a blessing because since then I've seen the world. I've traveled all over the place. I've done 2,500 skydived. I've free dived under the ice and all sorts of things. Would I have done them if I just got into the business and run through it? Maybe not. So it was a real blessing. So let's go back to early Brent. Right.
Yeah.
What was, yeah, Kate got out of university, went into a career or started your first company. How did
Yes.
you get into a company?
I love building things. I still do, And at 4 years old, we got a Commodore 64
I
in South
remember it well,
Africa.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Bing,
and
bing, bing, bing.
yeah, and I got this programming book and I literally just parrot typed it at 4 years old, not understanding anything I was writing, just matching
Yeah,
letters on the keyboard to the page and then run the compiler. And it had me hooked from then.
wow.
We only got our first PC when I was 14.
Yeah, on that modem that was going bing, bing,
Yeah,
bing,
it
bing.
took like 30 minutes to download it, but oh my gosh. But I loved computers. And I think it really was the creation that in this digital world, I could bring something to life that wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I started with Visual Basic. And by the time I finished university, Visual Basic was already extinct. But I started at RAU, I finished at UNISA. And then I started my first company while I was still in university. I wrote some software for the Johannesburg International Airport for lost baggage. And then after that, I got a company where I was writing software for banks, for transport companies. The company was called Exol that I was working for. And then at 21, my brother came to the States to play rugby. He got recruited to a little town called Aspen. And so he came out there to play rugby. I came about a year later and I was like, I think I need to do this. I think I need a change of pace. Started a company in Aspen.
Yeah.
And so it was a hardware company and helping with servers and all of that. And then I actually sold that and moved back to South Africa to be a missionary.
All right.
I mean, we had a great life. I really wanted my life to have purpose. And then my niece had a stroke at a few days old in Aspen. It was a big deal for the family. They didn't know what was wrong with her. Nobody knew. The doctors there had no clue. And it led my brother down this journey of trying to seek out a medical specialist to understand what was wrong. And that journey led us to start what became Second MD. So my brother asked me to come back from South Africa and he said, look, we're going to help far more people than what you're going to do. We can help millions of people. And I came back and built the software. We helped so many people with things that doctors had missed for years or decades. I remember one guy, his wife had been in bed for like 12 years, misdiagnosed with a disease she didn't have. We were able to get her to the right people and got that lady out of bed. I really felt like I was making a difference. And then we got bought out by a public company, which was supposed to be the greatest day of our lives.
Yeah. I'm hearing that.
There was a period that it seemed unreal, to start a business from scratch and to get bought out by a public company. That's everybody's dream. It's lightning in a bottle. Anyway, we got bought for a crazy amount of money and I never had to work again. I would log in all the time and check the stocks and I just couldn't believe it was real. When the company sold, my brother bought me a McLaren as a thank you gift. So I went from driving a smart car to a McLaren. We went from living in an apartment the entire time in the US to building a mansion. And so my life changed so much. And I really got enamored by my bank balance, which I'd never had before. That balance became my defining moment. I was finally rich. And you never know how you're going to be until you have a ton of money. And I tell you, it started to ruin my family. if I'm completely honest. I can't believe how quickly it made my kids brats and our lives just became about buying this. And, when we were living month to month, we were super dependent on God to get us through. But as soon as we had a ton of money, it was like, okay, we got it.
You went from this position of having such a purpose, and doing
Yes.
good work to not having that purpose anymore. Well, that must have been an eye opener.
Yeah, for sure. And so, when I bought the farm, I had enough money for this farm to never have to make money. It was just going to be a playground. And of course, I wanted to get my kids out of the city, get this entitlement out of them. And of course, for us to get closer to nature and agriculture, I really believed it would bring gratefulness out of them. If they
How,
worked this,
how old are
they were 13 and 11 when we moved.
they? Ooh.
So they were not happy.
They didn't want that.
So I moved them from a 5,000 square foot dream home into a barn with no toilet, no air conditioning. It was just a horse barn. And so my son was on a hammock and my wife and daughter were on a blow up mattress and they hated me.
I'm sure it worked. And once they got over hating you, they saw
And
life differently.
it really, I remember one of the moments that changed my daughter. We had a goat giving birth and I didn't know what to do, but one leg was sticking out. And I was typing that into a YouTube video. Leg sticking out a mom goat, what do I do? Kind of thing. I found this video saying you got to find the other hoof. These little goats we had, I couldn't fit my hand. So I grabbed my daughter and I'm like, listen, don't give me attitude. Don't give me a long story. I just need you to come save this goat's life. She saved the baby and the mom. And that changed her.
How can it not?
Yeah, for sure. And so the plan was working. It was working. We were definitely better off for being here. And then I woke up one morning and everything was gone. I went from never having to work again to literally the next day, not even being able to pay the $500 electric bill.
Wow.
So the company that had bought us, we were in a lockup period with the shares. They'd given us some cash, the rest was in shares. And they had lost a major client and missed all their projections, and it was just a fire sale or whatever it's called. The stock dropped from, they bought us at like $60 a share. It dropped to like $3 a share,
Wow.
and it never recovered. And so the last 10 years of my life that had been such a triumph that we had taken a company from ground up to sale that really, like, who wants to interview somebody who like made it and lost everything?
I've been there.
Oh my gosh. And I felt like such a failure, even though it wasn't my fault. I didn't have anything to do with it. I also had spent like I had that money forever.
Yeah.
So I bought the land cash and I had nothing. I had no savings. I had no 401k. I had nothing. And now here we were completely exposed. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started working jobs like every time zone for different companies. I think I was working like 4 or 5 jobs online at the same time and still working on the farm. So I was doing all these technology jobs and working on the farm and still couldn't come through it. This farm was so expensive with the animals and all of that stuff. But what had happened just before I lost all the money, I had converted our garage into a hotel for Ukrainians. I have a lot of Ukrainian relationships because of being in software and they're really good programmers. When the war broke out, I created the hotel and I said, guys, like you and your families, your friends, whoever needs a place, if you can get here to the States, I'll take care of you. Not realizing that my act of kindness that God would use to help me. And when I couldn't make it, I put it on Airbnb with high hope but low expectation. I didn't know anything about Airbnb. I put it on Airbnb and it booked almost immediately. It turned out we were close to this round top area I didn't even know of. They do this antique festival. Right as I was putting it on Airbnb, people were looking for a place to stay. And it booked up. In the summer, I bought a mobile home for the housekeeper. But after losing everything, you don't have a housekeeper, right? Poor people don't have housekeepers.
For sure.
I put that mobile home on Airbnb and I'm like, It's a
Yeah.
mobile home. I don't know if people are going to like this, but it's all I got. So I put that on Airbnb. And then there were 2 units providing an income. And then I built a house for my brother and sister-in-law, and they had moved off the farm by then. I put that on Airbnb and that booked up. And then all my IT jobs dried up. I'm very well qualified and really well experienced. And I couldn't even get a call back or a follow-up email. I applied to over 40 jobs on LinkedIn and nobody gave me the time of day. And I took it as a sign from God that that was not my path to pursue. Like he was focusing me. It's like I'm closing all these other doors, focus on this short-term rentals. Oh my gosh. And so I did everything that I could. I didn't know anything about short-term rentals, but I knew that I was going to love these people like they had never been loved.
Yeah.
Or any Airbnb. I mean, they would arrive and I'm like, here's a cake, here's bread, here's cupcakes. Like, you know, do you want my wife to cook dinner for you tonight? Like, what do you need? We made it such an exciting experience that people came back.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't have what we have to offer now, back then, all we had to offer was love and genuine appreciation for people to come. And people responded. So it was all women who was booking. I'm so grateful to those early adopting women that
Yeah.
were willing to take a chance on coming to this farm in the middle of nowhere.
South Africans generally are more entrepreneurial. And I believe this is because we come from a place where if you don't work, you don't eat.
And as hard as that is, it's actually a blessing.
And I had this, my daughter's 21, 22 in a couple of weeks. And she grew up in the UK. And I was quite worried about how do I give her that drive? How do I give her that inspiration? And I tried to get her involved in things. Teenagers, they don't do that. It doesn't work like that. But I kept on doing what I do with honor and hard work. I was also guilty of not spending as much time as I could with her, but I tried to make as much time as possible. I'm very proud that she's turned out the way she has because she's at university and she's doing these things. But I often wonder, how do we as parents foster that drive in our kids?
It is so difficult. I never wanted to raise spoiled kids, and I say no to a lot of things, but it's in the fabric, it's in the culture. You know, where in South Africa, you're at a traffic light and there's 10 guys selling things. It's in your mind that people are trying to make a living. You're very aware that the level of poverty, and I think you were more grateful that if you did have something, you knew that this wasn't guaranteed. Like you had to work hard and you weren't just passing up your job because there wasn't another 10 jobs that you could just go get.
Yeah. And you look for every opportunity. My first job was selling newspapers at 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
My mom couldn't afford the sweets that I wanted. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was that, right? And then I worked on a mushroom farm. So chanterelle mushrooms, you probably saw
Yeah.
in supermarkets, right? And yeah, as I was leaving the farm, yeah, people would start asking me, "Can you bring me some mushrooms?" So I went to the farmer. I said, "I'll buy these for 4 rand." He's like,
Yeah.
yeah. He's like, "Yeah, cool." So I'd buy half a kilo for 4 rand, and then I go and sell them for 6 rand. And yeah, because I worked from 3 in the morning, mushrooms don't care about your schedule at all. And I left at 11 in the morning. So
Wow.
I started putting mushrooms in the car. Then I took 10 bags. And one day I was like, okay, I'm going to buy 20 bags of mushrooms. I was only making 1,500 rand a month. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
even then, I had 35 ladies working with me. And I'd get there in the morning and they'd sing and they'd just harmonize, bring tears to my eyes. And yeah, so I took this 20 bags of mushrooms and I stopped on the way home at the first office block I could come to. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey, does anyone want some fresh mushrooms? All gone. I'm like, okay. And I did that
I'll
and I
be
did,
back tomorrow. Yeah.
yeah. And literally within 3 months, I was making 10,000 rand
Wow.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I had leftover mushrooms, so I went to pizza parlors and I sold them, yeah, that. And then they wanted more, and yeah, I mean that was my real eye opener that the multipliers are so important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can get the multiplier,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. But it's always that looking, like you say, these other people are less well off than I am, and they can smile and they can do, whatever, work as hard as they can. And
Yeah.
yeah, what's the opportunity? Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to go down to the beach and buy salt water and put salt water in 2 liter bottles, Coke bottles, then take them up to the farm and sell them. Anything you could do to make an extra buck, right?
Yeah. Memory that I have from South Africa that has been burnt into my mind. My uncle was quite wealthy when we were growing up in South Africa. He always had a BMW and, when nobody had. He had a car phone when only James Bond had a car phone and he lost everything. I remember him asking if I'll help him sell popcorn outside of a stadium. I will never forget that because nothing was beneath him. He sold popcorn outside of a stadium. Then he sold jackets and he did whatever he needed to do to provide for his family. That was his motivation. It was never about the money, it was about providing for his family. That has stood me in such good stead. I drew off that memory many times while I was grinding here on the farm, doing things that I never thought I would have to do to provide, but I don't regret it one bit. To answer your question, how do we teach our kids? I don't know when the sun is shining if we can teach them the real life lessons. It's really in the valleys where they see it, they learn it. Like with my uncle selling the popcorn at the stadium. It was the tough times that I believe produce the most beautiful people. And us going through this tough time on the ranch and the kids realizing and us having no money for anything but still happy, and it has produced some beautiful human beings that I'm very proud of.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So tell us a bit more about the ranch because I saw that. That is so awesome. If I'm ever there, we're going to come and visit you guys.
We'd love to have you. Yeah, it's the accidental business, right?
Yeah.
It's the business I never asked for, never, never planned for, but it was the only option I had was to have people coming to sleep on the farm.
Yeah.
That was the only way I was making money. But I definitely didn't do it alone. There were some key people in my life that without them, I couldn't have made it. Those people were contractors
Yeah.
because the bank wouldn't lend me a cent. And so I gathered a little bit of money together and I said to one of the contractors, like, how much will it be to build another house? And he was like, it's 70,000. And I was like, okay, I can give you 10. Will you build it? And hopefully by when it gets to the end, I'll have the money to
Yeah.
pay for the house. And so we would get money in and I would pay for 3/4 of the house. I wouldn't have enough money to pay for the whole thing. And I was like, hey, can you take this other money that I'm paying you for the first house? Can you use it to build the second house?
Yeah.
And so I owed this guy like $1 million by the end. But had he not done that, I could never have scaled the property enough to actually cover the expenses.
Yeah.
It would have taken way too long. I would have built a house a year, and by that time we would have been bankrupt and lost the farm.
So,
Uh,
what lessons did you learn there? Because I've only spoken to you for 45 minutes, yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, there's a character piece that's so important in that. I think authenticity comes in out of that and willingness to help. But what lessons have you learned during that process?
Speed is a big deal.
Yeah,
I realized the longer this takes to build, the more expensive it is for me because it's not earning money. And also selling people on a future dream was important. So I was AIing images of what this house was going to look like and then putting that online for people to book at the date that I hoped it would be ready.
did you get that wrong?
No, no, by
Okay.
God's grace, we never missed a deadline. There were some times that we finished 5 minutes before the guest arrived, and 2 days before we didn't have any septic, any power. We were working like crazy. But I will tell you this. The beauty about farm work or this kind of blue collar or hands on stuff is I could share it with my family where I could never share programming.
Yeah,
I can't say, hey, come write this algorithm with me, but I can say, hey, I need you to come nail drywall or whatever that is. So that was a beautiful thing that brought me closer because my career was very isolating from my family. And this career was a beautiful thing that friends, family, everybody could come together. We built one house in 30 days ourselves, an A-frame. I looked up the designs online and everybody built it with no experience. We're like with a nail gun and wood, and we got this thing done.
I love that, yeah, that can-do attitude, right? Like this needs to be done, we'll do it, right?
And that's where, when you don't have an option to fail, yes, you can get it wrong, but you don't have an option to fail. It's like you say you're running away from a tiger. Like you forget that being unfit is an option. You're going to run farther
For
You're going to
sure.
run faster. If you didn't have that tiger, you would have given up way before. And we were in such a desperate place that, like, it was either I feed my family or I don't feed my family. As a father and a husband, I would rather die than ever not provide for my family. I feel like that's the absolute worst. That was a driving motivator that gave me infinite energy. I never felt sorry for myself. I knew what I was fighting for. There's this old movie with Russell Crowe. It's a boxing movie. During the Great Depression, he loses everything and eventually he gets back to fighting. And they ask him, are you fighting for the prize? Are you fighting for this? I'm fighting for milk. I'm fighting for my family. I'm literally fighting for the sustenance of life for them. And it gave me such purpose, such drive. When I put my head on the pillow at night, it was like I was fighting a war for them.
Yeah.
And my wife was so amazing because, I mean, she just encouraged me all the time to keep going and how proud she was. And those words when you're in the middle of a fight,
Yeah.
it means a lot.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's the future look like? Yeah, you tell us where you are now. What is yeah? I will share the links for
Yeah.
this. This stuff looks amazing. Yeah, but
So all of,
you're an entrepreneur, so yeah, I'm seeing like 7 of these places building up everywhere.
I'll tell you this, in 2024, January 8th, we had $5,000 in the bank, but we were making it.
Yeah.
Like we had 5 units at the time and things were looking promising. And then on the 8th of January, my wife was in a massive car accident. And when I got the call, they said, they don't think she's going to live through the night. So much stuff was wrong with her. Her face was crushed, her brain had swelled. It was just a mess. And I stopped all marketing for Milk and Honey Ranch, obviously. And I posted on our business accounts asking people to pray for my wife. Didn't ask people to book, didn't ask people anything. Anyway, she made it through the night. Then they said she's in a vegetative state. Then they said she came out of that. Then they said she's crippled and blind. Then she came out. And I'm just sharing all these things as we're praying for things. And I had fully expected to lose the ranch, to pay $10,000 just to keep her in ICU. And it was $500,000 in medical expenses. And we had this Christian Medishare thing that didn't pay. And it was just a given that we would lose the ranch. And I had achieved everything I wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
I loved where my kids were. We had learned I could do it all, you know? So we had achieved everything that I'd wanted. And I was like, we'll move back to an apartment and my wife's alive. Anyway, the ranch grew 1,300% in bookings. It took some people a year and a half to get to the ranch from the time when they booked because they paid in full a year and a half out. So I had all this money come in. And then the McLaren that my brother had given me, I raffled to pay for all the medical expenses. So the year that should have killed the business was the greatest year of growth we've ever had. And so we now have 36 stays. We can sleep up to 145 people. We've got a wedding chapel. We've got a venue for 150 people. We've got a cafe, a spa. We're about to install our floating water park. We're about to launch our golf simulator. We've got a little putting green. We've got a dirt bike track. And then, of course, all the animals. We've got kangaroos, all the little mini cows. I mean, it's just, and I say all that, and I hope nowhere in my talk does anybody think that I think that I should have achieved this. I explained it the other day to somebody. I said, it's like going to Vegas. I threw the dice as I
Yeah.
took a chance to do this, but I had no control over the numbers.
Yeah.
And that's where I give credit to God. I could have done all of this and nobody came to book. I could have done this and my wife crashed and nobody did bookings while we're in the hospital. Like there's so many things that were outside of my control, like those women coming back. I mean, they can go to a Hilton or a Hyatt there's 1,000 other places that people could have gone instead of Milk and Honey Ranch that I had no control over. And so to people who are listening and are thinking, I think the most authentic and powerful businesses come out of a deep need.
Yeah.
Second MD came out of my niece having a stroke. Milk and Honey Ranch came out of me desperately trying to put food on the table for my family. Yes, there are some people that can start businesses because they see a financial gap. But the most meaningful things are things that so deeply connect with the heart, because then when you have initial failure or it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
because there's something far bigger driving than just financial.
Yeah. And that's before and after, right? Because my current drive is because of the dark places I went, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
lost probably £3 million because I bought an adventure center before COVID. And I always had this innate belief that I could fix anything. But you can't fix COVID. When people aren't allowed to come to your place and you've got 150 staff, you can't fix that. Yeah. And I ended up nearly committing suicide.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm glad your wife's okay. But I don't want other business owners to suffer that. And that drives me.
But also, I gotta say, would you be the person you are today without that event in your life?
Not a chance.
And that's the thing is, yes, we want to offer advice, and yes, we can help people navigate some things. But there are some things that happen in our life that, like, in hindsight,
Yeah.
you don't want to miss that exit, even though that exit was flipping rough. You, you
Yeah.
wouldn't change it.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't change anything. The things that have made the biggest, you were talking about your wife and my wife when I was married many years ago, pregnant with my daughter and a brain hemorrhage.
Sure.
And then she had a second brain hemorrhage in the hospital, 5 months pregnant, and had to have brain surgery. Yeah, you're talking about your wife brought it back up again. Yeah,
Yeah.
10 days of sitting with that brain swelling and looking at the little pipe coming out of her head and seeing what the numbers were saying.
Yeah.
And there was just this piece of not knowing if she was going to live, them saying that they have to put her into a barbiturate coma to stop the brain swelling, and they don't know what that's going to do to your child. Yeah, and it was just yeah. But all these moments in life, they're so formative in who you are,
Yes.
right? And we have to remember we're dealing with people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's got a story. Yeah, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, my story is not better than your story, and your story is not better than my story. You put your problems in a bucket and you stir them all around, and you take your own problems back. Almost every
Yes,
time.
for sure. Because we've been uniquely equipped to handle the hardships that we will face. I learned this about farming, but for an apple to gain its sweetness, it has to go through a bitter winter.
No.
And it's got to have a freeze. It's got to have a hardship to be sweet. And the greatest people I know, every single one of them, like yourself, have been through some bitter winters. And with the kids, this is something I've learned is we don't want our kids to suffer. We want to protect them from betrayal, from bullying, all of these things. Of course, there's a level of parenting that you can't just throw your kids out to the wolves, but we have to be careful that we don't stop them from actually developing the core skills that make dealing with life possible. Because this is why I believe then people experience something and they're like, oh, I'm triggered, and they fall apart over
Yeah.
something that you're like, are you kidding me? Like, the stupid thing is a big deal. It's because they never got to actually develop any toughness in their life.
Yeah, but the coping skills come from doing that, right?
Yes.
They come from knowing that you've dealt with the problem before, and maybe it wasn't the same problem, but you got out of that the other side.
Yes.
They don't come from somebody fixing all your problems all the time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure.
Brent, it's been amazing chatting to you, and I'm going to come visit you. And yeah,
Please, you
yeah,
let me know and I'll hook you up, man. I'll hook you up. So I would love to have you.
yeah, amazing. Can't wait to see the place. But any last words for people out there?
Yeah, there probably are people who were in the place that you were, like wanting to give up. And I can promise you that life only gets better from that place.
Rock bottom because you've got a
Yeah.
really good launching pad, right?
That's always the good news about rock bottom. There's only one way to go, but you have to keep moving. You can't get lost in regret. You can't get lost in bitterness. You can't get lost in what ifs.
Yeah.
You've got to dust yourself up and say, okay, I've got to make the most of today with what I have in my hands and do it.
Yeah. Amazing, dude. So amazing to speak to you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for asking.
Thanks for listening to Power Movers, the podcast from All the Power, where our mission is to help business owners reclaim their time, reset their energy, and live the life they love. If this episode sparked something for you, your next step is simple. Take the fit check at allthepower.co.uk. It's a short clarity tool that helps you see where you are, what's getting in the way, and what might be possible if you have the right system. When you're ready, come and join the tribe. Power movers start with our signature framework called Elevate 360, a system built to help you escape survival mode, create structure, and move forward with power. Just remember, everything we share here is based on real stories, experience, and frameworks. It's not personal business advice. Always speak to a coach or advisor before making big decisions. Because in the end, it's about more than business. It's about building a life that you actually love. I'm Roy Castleman, and I'll see you in the next episode.